US basketball star Brittney Griner has been released from custody in Russia as part of a prisoner swap with the USA. A two-time Olympic gold medalist, Griner was arrested in Moscow back in February and sentenced to 9 years in prison on drugs charges. She recently had an appeal rejected and was transferred to a remote penal colony in central Russia. Her release comes as part of a high-stakes prisoner exchange that sees the USA hand over notorious Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout. US President Joe Biden says he's spoken to Brittney Griner on the phone. Here's how he reacted to the news of her release.
She's safe. She's on a plane. She's on her way home. After months of being unjustly detained in Russia, held under intolerable circumstances. Brittney will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones, and she should have been there all along. This is a day we've worked toward for a long time. We never stopped pushing for her release. It took painstaking and intense negotiations, and I want to thank all the hard-working public servants across my administration who worked tirelessly to secure her release.
Biden announced the deal alongside Brittney Griner's wife, Sherelle. Here's what she said.
So over the last 9 months, you all have been so privy to one of the darkest moments of my life. And so today I'm just standing here overwhelmed with emotions, but the most important emotion that I have right now is just sincere gratitude for President Biden and his entire administration.
Our US correspondent Carolina Chimoy joins me now from Washington, D.C. And DW correspondent Yuri Rishetto joins us from Riga. DW's reporting from there since its Moscow bureau was shut down by the Russian government. Carolina, I'm going to start with you. How big was the pressure on the White House to make this deal happen?
The White House was under big pressure because, in President Biden's words, Brittney Griner was wrongfully detained. Now, this means, of course, a huge success for his administration, also regarding the public opinion. We know that the negotiations have been ongoing for months, but the last thing we heard from the Russian side was that they would not be open for a deal. So this indeed comes a bit as a surprise. Now, a couple of interesting things here, Hila. Here in the U.S. government was actually trying to secure the release not only of Brittney Griner, but also of Paul Whelan, another U.S. American citizen who has been held in Russian prison since 2018, charged with espionage. But according to a senior official from the State Department, what he said this morning is that there was no other option for the U.S. government than to do a one-on-one exchange, meaning Brittney Griner in exchange for Viktor Bout.
All right, Yuri, if we can look at the other side of things, the swap, of course, carried a heavy price, didn't it? In exchange for Griner, the USA handed over Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout. Can you tell us more about him?
Viktor Bout is a 55-year-old former Soviet officer who was apparently an arms dealer. Now he is so infamous that he has the nickname the Merchant of Death. He was sentenced to 25 years behind bars in the US. Reportedly, Viktor Bout built up his business sailing old Soviet military planes left on Soviet airfields after the Soviet Union collapsed. But he was arrested in 2010. Then he was extradited from Thailand to the US. He claims, however, he isn't just an international entrepreneur in the travel business and innocent.
OK, let's talk about timing. I mean, President Biden said they'd been pushing for months to release Griner. What made Russia agree now?
I think President Putin seems to be under a lot of pressure at the moment. Internationally, he is completely isolated, but he's also under pressure in Russia itself. Among ordinary people, the initial euphoria about the war seems to be fading. Many people seem to be enthusiastic about the war in the first few months. But now, according to polls, the mood is total indifference. People are tired of the war now that Russia is losing and now that Russians are concerned about being called up to fight. As for the elites, it seems shows that many are totally unhappy with Western sanctions against Russia, which are having more and more of an impact of their lives. Many have lost their privileges, including their freedom to travel. Many have lost money. And nobody knows how long the war will continue. War aims are becoming more and more diffuse, and Russia suffered a very bitter defeat when troops had to withdraw from Ukrainian Kherson. So Putin desperately needs good news now, and the prisoner exchange could be that good news if Americans lifted the sanctions against Russia.
OK. Carolina, President Biden said that it took painstaking negotiations to make this happen. But can I ask you, how do the American people feel about the US government essentially striking deals with Russia while it's waging a war on Ukraine?
Well, this is, as Yuri also mentioned, this is a good thing for the Biden administration, because they are showing that a U.S. American citizen is coming back in December, a couple of weeks before Christmas. This is probably going to be a positive thing for them. The Russian and Ukrainian war is still quite far away from the United States, Rahila. So people are not really noticing the sanctions here. The sanctions are being noticed in Russia, in Europe, but not really here. And this is also what the senior agent from the State Department said this morning. This is not really going to change the negotiation and the position that the United States has towards the war. He pointed out that this has been a difficult negotiation, yes, but very focused on this exchange of prisoners, and that it is completely separated from the war that is happening right now in Ukraine and the brutal way that it's being unfolding.
DW's Carolina Chimoy in Washington and DW's Yuri Richetto in Riga. Thanks so much to you both.